Well, it's Good Friday, so it makes sense that I'd be reviewing a show about a Catholic vigilante. Hey guys, JamesMCD Reviews here, welcome to another TV log, and today we're going to be talking about Daredevil Born Again. The kind of reboot, kind of continuation of the hit Marvel Netflix show that finally properly reestablishes Daredevil into the MCU. And it once again follows Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, as they're both trying to turn over a new leaf and leave their old lives behind, with Matt starting up a new law firm and Fisk being elected mayor. But will they end up returning to their old ways? Yes, they will, because if not, we wouldn't have a show. If you haven't already, be sure to check out my TV logs for the original Daredevil show on Netflix so you know my thoughts going into this. But the short version is, I really liked Daredevil seasons 1 through 3. I think season 3 is probably my favorite. And going into this show, I was excited, but also kind of nervous and just praying that they wouldn't fuck it up. I was hearing all the reports of the show originally having to be scrapped and redone, and even though the trailers looked good, I was going in with fairly mid expectations. And I'm happy to report that while it starts out a little bumpy in the first act, stick with it, because it does get really good, and in some points even reaches the level of quality that was in the original show. Now from here on out, I'm going to go ahead and issue a spoiler warning because there are some pretty major things that happen that are impossible to talk about without basically spoiling everything. I'm assuming if you're watching this, then you've seen it already, but if you haven't, or you haven't caught up on the original series, then definitely give both a watch and then come back and give this a watch. Spoiler warning over, let's continue. So I won't lie, the first episode kind of had me a little worried. They make some very bold choices story-wise, to put it mildly. They went through the effort of bringing back Foggy and Karen after everyone complained about them not being in it, and then in the first few minutes, not only do they send Karen to San Francisco for the rest of the season, but they kill off Foggy in a pretty brutal and sad way. It was a very shocking way to start the show off, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it. I also wasn't super crazy about that cold open in general. It was very messily shot and edited, and the VFX were pretty bad. It wasn't exactly off to the best start, but thankfully the rest of the season picks up the slack. And even though I might not have liked them killing off Foggy, it does well in setting up the tone for the show and letting you know that they aren't fucking around this season. One of the things the Netflix Defenders shows were praised for was that they were a bit more grounded and a lot darker than the Marvel movies. And this show stays consistent to that tone. In fact, they amplify it. The fights are a lot bloodier, they say the fuck word a lot, the action scenes feel very raw and well choreographed, and with the exception of the first fight with Bullseye, they don't overly rely on CGI. But with that said, the look of the show is also kind of a mixed bag. It's not unfair to say the Netflix shows had a very low budget, but not only did they work well with the constraints they had, but it meant the shows looked a lot rougher and dirtier, and it gave them a bit more personality. With Born Again, you can definitely see the MCU money on screen, and not always in a good way. It feels too polished and clean, and even though it's a lot darker, it still looks like a lot of other Marvel shows. You can also see where they've reused footage from the previous iteration of this show and tried to mix it with the new footage. It's hidden just enough for it to not be distracting, but it is still there. With that being said, they do some cool stuff with the visuals. Some scenes where they play with the aspect ratio to convey Daredevil using his powers is really cool. The way they play around with lighting and color for certain characters is unique and stylistic. And like I said, the action looks cool, but it's a bit too quick and polished, and nothing in the show looks as good or ambitious as that long one-take fight in the middle of season 3. I realize that I might be starting off a bit negative for what's ultimately a positive review of the show, so let me go over some stuff that I did like. The opening credits. It might not be as instantly iconic as the Netflix show, but it's very well put together. It fits the tone and style of this new version of Daredevil. They mix a new opening theme with the old one really nicely, and in an age of streaming shows and opening credits and theme songs being phased out, I like that this show got to actually have an opening theme. The acting across the board is great. The original cast slipped back into their roles pretty perfectly. Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, Deborah Ann Wall, John Bernthal, they all haven't skipped a beat since 2015. The new cast they introduce is pretty good. They all work for this show, but wouldn't feel out of place in the original series. Hamar de los Reyes as Hector, aka White Tiger, was a really intriguing character, and it's a shame they didn't get to explore him further before the actor tragically died of cancer. Hunter Dohan plays one of the overarching villains of the show, Muse, and he is fucking unnerving. Margarita La Viva was good as Heather. Her and Matt have decent chemistry, and having her linked to both Matt and Fisk makes for compelling drama. Honestly, the only cast member that I genuinely hated was Michael Gandolfini as one of Fisk's cabinet members. He's such a Weasley little dork who doesn't contribute anything, and every time he shows up, I just wanted Buck to shoot him in the face. Everyone else in the show does perfectly fine though. The story does a good job balancing all of its mini arcs. None of them feel too rushed or too dragged out, and they all tie back in seamlessly to the overarching rivalry between Fisk and Matt. They devote a lot of attention towards Fisk and his team. That's where a lot of the juice of the story comes from. Obviously, we all know that this mayor gig is just a way for Fisk to get power back over the city, but the way he uses that power, especially his abuse of the police and him targeting vigilantes, is pretty chilling. I could see people calling the political overtones a bit ham-fisted, but those are the same people that voted for Fisk, so they don't matter. And between this and Echo, I feel like they have more than made up for Kingpin going out like a bitch in the Hawkeye series, because Jesus Christ, dude. I also like how much of a hand Vanessa is playing in everything. She has a massive chokehold over Fisk, even with him supposedly having all the power, and I'm very curious to see how that all comes crashing down in season 2. As for Matt, he had some solid moments throughout the season. His discussion with Punisher and the episode with him and Yusuf Khan was really good, but they really don't give him a lot of interesting stuff to do this season. They keep him out of the suit for most of the show. They aren't giving him many interesting cases. He seems almost nerfed on purpose so that Kingpin has an easier rise to power. Maybe because he's still reeling from Foggy's death, it causes him to be a bit angrier and sloppier until Karen shows back up. But still, it just comes across like they didn't know what to do with him. But overall, all the problems that I have with the show don't fully take away from the stuff that it does really, really well. I think that while it is a slight downgrade, Daredevil Born Again is a solid continuation of the Netflix series. I appreciate that they keep to the more mature and gritty tone. I thought the action, except for that first fight, was pretty solid. I thought the acting from everyone was great, and the story did some very interesting things, especially on the Fisk side of things. And while this might not mean much given their varied level of quality, I think of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, this is in the top tier. I really hope season 2 takes note of some of the problems with season 1 and fixes them, because it already seems like they're headed in the right direction. And I'm curious to see how the rest of the Defenders get worked into the MCU. I mean, they've already announced a Punisher special coming out probably next year, but who knows, maybe we'll see Jessica Jones, maybe they'll bring in Luke Cage. There was one moment in the finale where the police chief gets picked up by one of Fisk's men, and he calls him Luke, and you see a glimpse of him in the rearview mirror, and he kind of looks like Mike Coulter. He isn't, but it was weird. I had to do a double take. I'm like, wait, is that fucking Luke Cage? But no, that was just pretty funny. But anyway, Daredevil Born Again isn't perfect, but I'd still recommend checking it out if you're interested. If you haven't seen the original Daredevil series, I'd say start with that first, not only because it provides context for Born Again, but also because it's just better. But anyway, going to my ranking, I'd give Daredevil Born Again Season 1 a 3.5 or maybe a 4, I'll have to sit with it for a bit, out of 5. And that does it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of Daredevil Born Again Season 1? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's a worthy follow-up to the original series? And what are you hoping to see out of Season 2? Let me know all that stuff down below. I've got more videos coming real soon, but until then, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date when I'm posting. Follow me on my social media, subscribe to my main channel. Everything you need to know will be in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.